It's quite interesting that we have these two readings today connected, in which we see this powerful leader who has what every good leader truly desires: the wisdom to know what the right thing to do is, and also the means to do it. There are sometimes leaders that have lots of material means, but they have no wisdom, and we get in trouble that way. There are others that have wisdom, but they don't have the ability to carry it out, and that wonderful idea gets stuck. But in Solomon, you see the two of them coming together. He has wisdom, and he has the ability to accomplish that wisdom. And the Queen of Sheba sees this. It says that she's breathless of all that Solomon has done in unifying his kingdom, making it abundant, all of these beautiful things. And yet, it's quite interesting that the next chapter, which we'll read tomorrow, chapter 11 in the first book of Kings, talks about Solomon's heart going corrupt. There's this switch. This leader who has everything together on the outside, and yet there's something that's starting to corrupt on the inside. He has the wisdom, he has the means, he's doing amazing things on the outside, and yet there's some seed that's starting to grow. And it ultimately is the relationships that he's having with all of these foreign alliances and the wives that he's marrying. It says, when Solomon was old, his wives turned his heart away from God. And he wanted to, in a sense, be drawn into what each of them worshipped. And so he brought in these terrifying gods: the god of Moloch, the god of Chemosh, the god Baal, the god Ashtaroth, all these different gods that had horrible practices, including child sacrifices. And you just kind of wonder, all of this is going well, and then it switches. And I think the gospel today gives us a hint into that. It's not the stuff outside that defiles, but the defiling, it comes from within. And that's a warning for each one of us, who maybe can do wonderful things, can have wonderful charisms, can be bringing a lot of fruit out, and yet if we're not guarding our heart, if we're not going to the Lord in that honest prayer, if we're not doing those heart checks, then we might feel very, very healthy on the outside, but maybe we have a spiritual heart attack or stroke that is actually boiling up and just about to happen. Jesus says here, but what comes out of the man, that's what defiles him. And he lists all of these different things, dealing with the different deadly sins. All of these come from within and they defile. So really today we have that warning to say, is the law of God in my heart, like the responsorial psalm? If it's truly being lived inside, then the outside continues to remain healthy. But if we're focusing on the outside, on the external things that we're doing, and we're not taking that time for intimacy with God, then the monster that starts to creep within will all of a sudden come out and take over everything else. And you see this even with Solomon, in which all of the good that was happening, all of the material power that he had, because of the corruption that happened within his heart, everything started to get transformed, and it became a brutality against the people of Israel. The people of Israel start to feel this burden, and they start to say to the son of Solomon, we felt this lash, we felt this burden. And the son of Solomon will actually go even further, and he'll even use a very explicit language to be able to say, if you thought that my father was tough, well, you haven't seen anything yet. And it's this continuation. Again, that wound of the father ultimately, sadly, becomes something that continues in his son and in his son. It isn't something that is like a fatalism aspect, because there are good and noble kings that rise up, kings of Israel, kings of Judah, that rise up and do these powerful renewal moments, saying, I'm not going to be like the fathers before me. I am going to be like David of old. I'm going to go back to the beginning. But each person has that opportunity. And each one of us, in every single generation, has the opportunity to say, do I allow the heart to be guided by the law of God, or do I allow it to falter?